Good evening, Pete.
Hello, Treb.
Yes, it is very exciting to speak to you in this evening. I know that in this evening you have many questions. Whenever you wish to begin, you may.
Okay, I'm excited to speak to you as well, and I will start by saying you have my permission to look as deeply into my energy as you are able and is necessary to answer the questions that I have.
Yes!
Okay, the first thing is actually not a question. I wanted to know if you had any information about a planet in the Pleaidian region called Sidonis, and I was interested to know any details of the planet that you might have and of the avian humanoids that live there.
Yes, this specific name carries a vibration that is connected to many different planetary consciousnesses. As you are aware, there are many different names for many different places from many different entities. For instance, even on your own planet, Earth is known as Terra, it is known as Gaia, it is known as Earth. There are many different names, and other races outside of your planet call it many different names. So this concept of Sidonis is one concept that encompasses many different energies. But as you are speaking of the Pleaidian region, and also understanding that there are avian entities involved, there is one vibrational fitting that we could connect to, and in our own perception the probability is higher than 72% that this is the planet that you are speaking of. And if that is the case, there is an avian race that resides there. There is a amount of information that we have about these entities. What line of information is most specifically exciting to you?
The reason I ask is because I think I got guidance from this race when I was 19 years old. I had a dream about this. I later found out it was about this specific energy that really helped to guide me and open me up to the different choices that were in front of me at that time.
Yes, if you are speaking of the specific connection that you have to this entity that resides upon this planetary consciousness, there is an entity that is within your oversoul that is connected to you more than 11 times throughout the entirety of your incarnation. And through the 11 times that this entity is connected to you, it has given you a great deal of insight and energetic connection. Working with you in the dream state is the easiest way for this entity to connect to, but as you are aware, there is a great deal of understanding of what we know and what we perceive of these entities. Now, when you express that you desire to know more about this race, what in the specific realm or vein of information do you wish to understand? Their society structure, the history of these entities, or their connection to yourself more?
Any and everything that you could tell me. I would like to know my connection to them, their society structure, also what they look like, what density they are, and the way you define them. Are they type 1 or type 2 entities?
Yes! First of all, if you are looking at location, if you are looking at what density or dimension they are from, when you are looking at density, in your perception they have just started the 5th density. When they had contacted you previously, they were in the 4th to 5th density exchange, and now there are at least a critical point of 53% of them that have shifted past the 5th density realm. So now the collective is beginning to experience the more 5th density way, and as they are experiencing this, it has brought awareness to many of these entities that before were not aware of human beings, but from what they had heard from other entities in their race that had connected to you, or from other historical records and archives, but these entities had been connecting to humans for at least the last 800 of your years, and as they have connected, they have both physically been to Earth, and they have also energetically connected in dream state. Now, understanding in the classification how we would perceive entities, what we would consider these entities is a benevolent type 2 race. They are not mischievous, or in their intent they are not desiring to perhaps persuade your mind or to guide you astray from what they think you desire. They are more based in their own excitement to learn about humans, for their love of what most entities would call the human condition, and through that exchange and excitement there has been a great deal of personal contact with this entity from yourself. Now, in the words there is no language that can easily be described, but what we would consider that is close is look. It is a very long L sound with a K on the end in your spelling, and that entity is the one that is connecting to you in your dream state. That entity, in your perception, could be a probability of the future version of yourself, if you desire to grow and to evolve into that entity. This entity in your own personal interactions had been very intense but very small in portions of time. During those 11 interactions that we've spoken of previously, there has been a great deal of energy and information exchanged, but done so in much shorter time. This shows you your own capability of opening your crown chakra, third eye chakra, throat and heart chakra, but it also gives you the understanding of how highly psychic and telepathic that this race is as well. These entities, growing from 4th to 5th entity, have a very unique societal structure. There are masculine and feminine entities, although they are not considered male and female. They are having sexual reproduction from both sides, so they are both masculine and feminine in the organs that they carry. But each individual will desire to connect with one of those energies more so than the other, and that is what determines them to be male or female in your perception. So as you are looking at the race and their societal structure, they are often very sexual in their own reproductive means, but keep sexuality for the reproductive means in itself. Sexuality to them is also one way to exchange energy during the act of reproduction. So as they are physically linking to not only others but to themselves, they are able to find an energetic exchange that is very similar to downloads in the way that you would receive them as a human. So they could produce their own children by themselves asexually, but they are also able to connect to other entities and exchange that energy. So it is truly dependent upon the perspective of the entity, the desire, and the pathway of that entity on how they wish to exchange. And in that energy, new physical bodies are bred, therefore consciousness may integrate with them more directly. And as they are connecting to the physical bodies, it is much different than it is for the majority of humans, although there are always exceptions when it comes to this. Most humans decide to incarnate within the last month of in utero, sometimes during the birthing process, while the physical bodies are being grown in the individual parent. And although there are very few humans who choose the route to stay within the entire conception process, most of the avian entities do connect to this. They are, as soon as the physical bodies are being connected to, they connect to them most directly. So in that essence, what we can tell you is that this race is individual and different from many other avian races, especially those that are in the Pleaidian region. And as these entities are expressing their own desire to connect not only to humans but to others, they have a very great what you would consider a space program, galactic outreach program, or conscious connection to other races programs. And as they are doing all of this connecting, they are both learning and sharing their own wisdom and archives with many other races.
Wow, thank you so much for that.
Yes, you are very welcome.
And when was the last time I was connected with that race? You said it was 11 times. Do you know the last time I was connected to them?
Yes, in your terms, approximately 1 3/4 of a month or 1 month and 3 weeks ago was the latest connection to this entity. But as you are speaking, as you are learning, as you are becoming more excited in this moment, this entity is drawing a portal toward your energy. So what we expect is that in this evening, during your dream state, if you wish to stay open to this, the 12th connection could be in this evening.
Wow, yes, I will definitely stay open to that.
Yes, and it is very exciting as well.
Yes. I guess the next question I have is, when did my incarnation cycle begin and in what star system?
Yes, when you are looking at incarnation cycles in general, your incarnation cycle started within the Earth Collective as human beings. Although you are not comparatively having a great deal more lives than many humans, in the wave of entities that you have come into, it is a very average setting. Let us use, for example, the host who has been here since the very beginning of the Earth Collective Consciousness and has had several tens of thousands of incarnations as third and fourth density beings. In your own incarnation, you have only had approximately 350 incarnations. Before that, you came from many different areas of consciousness, and depending on your own energy in the moment would depend on how we would perceive your lineage. What we mean by this is that we see your own connection to Syrian energy. We see your own connection to human Pleiadians. We see your own connection to avian Pleiadians. And we also see your connection to the Boetes constellation, entities that are humanoid in Beta Boetes. So all of these different lineages, you have placed yourself in incarnation cycles there, but depending on the moment of your energy would be dependent on how we would perceive your incarnation cycle starting.
Okay, and how do you perceive that in this moment?
Yes! In this moment, what we perceive as your Syrian connection is very strong, but as you become more excited of the Pleiadian avian entities, these entities are also pulling forward.
Okay, great.
Yes, it is very great and exciting as well.
Okay, Treb, on November the 18th, just about a month ago, I had a dream of, in my perception, of a large humanoid entity that I called Atlas. And this was the first time that I associated a name with the being that I'd seen in a dream. And he felt very close to me. And in the dream, there were other entities around that desired to meet him. But they were a bit fearful because of his large size, and I was trying to reassure them in the dream that it was okay to approach him and that he was a friendly entity. Could you look into this and tell me what that was about?
Yes, we are already aware of this as it stands outward in your energy very strongly out towards the edges of your energy. The entity that you have connected to in your dream state is what some people would call a Nephilim entity, or some people would call a hybrid human and Anunnaki entity. This entity was around during the first manipulations of human DNA after several generations, and as this entity came forward to the Earth Collective, it was very large in physical size, but cared for the human race very deeply. This entity has a very special story, as most of the entities who were hybrid in nature had contact with their family from the Anunnaki. This entity had very limited contact, always feeling a great draw towards the human race, more so than the Anunnaki portion of its ancestors. So as it began to connect to other humans and connect to other people within your planet at that time, this entity was able to experience more of the Earth part of him, or the human part of him, than the other. This gave the entity a great love, but it also gave him a very large reputation for being one of the angels' children, or one of the mixed children, who was very friendly and very familiar with human composure. So as this entity was talked about and legends began and stories came forward of this entity, it gave the opportunity for other humans to go out searching and seeking. The benefit of having the Anunnaki family is that this entity lived for several thousands of years in your time period, while at that time the average human was living to 400 and 500 years, so this entity was able to be accessible by many humans who heard the story and heard of the Great Atlas and came to connect to this entity. Now, when you are looking at your own portion of the connection to this entity, it is very simple. This entity is one that is within your oversoul, but only comes through the dream state, because the part of your oversoul that carried many Earth incarnations is not accessible to you in this moment as easily as the portions who have only been human from the period of after DNA manipulation. So if you are looking at it linearly, one of the first Earth lives that you experience would be one in which you are connected to this entity in.
Wow, and what was that? Can you look into that life and tell me what that was about when I connected with this entity?
Yes, one moment and we will connect this more deeply. If you are willing to close your physical eyes and push your energy outward, as you push your energy from the center of the physical body to the outside of the physical body, continue pushing it outward with your thoughts and mindset on this dream and on this life. And as you are doing this, place an intent for us to connect your energy, and I will connect to it in one moment.
Okay, I'll do that right now.
Yes! One moment, please. Yes! As we are perceiving this incarnation, again, very far back into your history, in the very far back area, it is before your written history was very easily accessible. This is back in a time period that you would consider approximately 13 to 14,000 BC, and this incarnation specifically was one in where you were a modified human being, one that was of approximately 4 to 5 generations of entities that had already been genetically and directly modified. So as you are going around this earth, it is a very basic existence. The Anunnaki entities were still roaming this planet very freely. And as you are experiencing direct laboring in direct orders from the Anunnaki, there was a story of one man who was helping free certain levels of human beings to help them connect more deeply with themselves in each moment. So as you continue to hear of this entity, and as it is in the next town, liberating humans from the perhaps as you perceived it, slavery of your own race, and became very connected to the concept, hoping that the entity would then come to your area. Now, understanding there were not towns in the way that you would think of towns, but more settlings in small areas, pending on the workload that the Anunnaki needed. So in that moment, you were with approximately 2,000 other humans, and this entity comes in, expressing who he is to the Anunnaki people, and tried to persuade them to allow you to let go, as they did not wish you all to go, as they needed you for the purpose of mining certain minerals. He expressed to all of you that you should leave in the middle of the night, and he would help the escape by keeping away the Anunnaki as you were leaving. So as you do what this entity expressed to you and what he told you you could do, all of you left, and approximately, as you would see it, just before the light of the sun comes upwards, all of you were very far, within 12 miles away from that area, and you hear great explosions and great fireballs coming from the distance of where you were. And as you worried for your newly found friend and person who desired to help you, you understood that your friend could be hurt or could be injured, so you began to go backwards and told the rest of the entities to go forward. And 5 miles back towards this town, you found this entity that was very large and very strong. It expressed to you that he had not killed any of the other Anunnaki, but he had fought with him in order to help you achieve. So then you traveled back to your group with this entity. He shared the stories that he was not hurting. He shared the stories how he had been trying to liberate many humans from other entities throughout the world, that he would travel with his inner technology, which at that time, although humans' inner technology was very strong, his was to a very higher and very much greater degree. So as he walked with you and talked with you and shared with you, you grew a very strong bond with his entity in that life, and just as soon as you had met him, just as soon as he had connected to you and gave you what you perceived as your freedom, he had left to go to the other next area that he wished to help liberate. So in that way, this lifetime had connected you to this entity and had connected you to the energy, and that portion was his part in that life of yours.
Thank you so much for that. That's wonderful.
Yes, you are very welcome.
Okay, the next question I have is there a correlation between the composition of a person's DNA and the composition of entities in their oversoul?
Yes, this is one way to look at this concept. What we can tell you is that regardless of DNA that is very similar, it does not account fully for the energy or entities within the oversoul. But what we can tell you is that the fractal consciousness that you are uses the DNA to communicate the more non-physical energies, ideals, and entities upon the other side of your seeing, gives that information through your DNA and the chakra system. So in one way, it is your link to your oversoul, it is your communication factor that links you, but genetically it does not give you the 100% guarantee that similar DNA or certain portions of your DNA are connecting the same fractals. It is dependent on each individual fractal consciousness to set their DNA mapping up for the genetics. It more so has to do with the physical lineage and the entities that go into that physical lineage. understanding that many humans experience the concept of desire to work through their family lineage and work through their family line. So an entity who is reincarnated on Earth 100 times will often find at least 20 incarnations in one specific family, which means that anyone who is in that family has a higher probability of being in the same oversoul. So it is yes and it is no at the same time, depending on how you perceive and what your perception is.
Okay, I understand that. And which oversoul am I a fractal of?
Yes, there are 144,000 oversouls in the human collective. The one that you belong to is a representation of many different energies of exploration, of empowerment, of understanding hardships. There are many different themes played out throughout your incarnation. Now, many humans believe that each oversoul is designated a name or an energy, and what we can tell you of this is that there are energetic signatures that are representation from one individual oversoul to the next, but in that representation, it is experienced differently by each fractal. So let us say that you yourself in this incarnation, you yourself as a Syrian entity before entering the human collective, and one as perhaps a Nihal in your future incarnation. All three of these fractals are in the same oversoul. Each one of them are directly connected to that oversoul. But each one of you will perceive the oversoul as a different vibration, and that is due to the fact that entities that are fractal consciousnesses are only able to perceive a percentage of their oversoul. So let us use again the three entities for example. The entity that you are now may experience a 9% of their oversoul in its entirety when connecting to the highest portion of your lower fractal consciousness, and as you are connecting to that part, you perceive the oversoul in its entirety, although you are only perceiving 9%, because that is your maximum capacity to see. At the same time, the Nihal would see 20% of it, but a different 20% than your 9%, and the Syrian entity would see 41% of its oversoul, and see it as a different portion as well. So if all three of you were to look into the name of the energy, your fractal consciousness would have a word such as Ra, Ha-Te, or Ra, Ha-Ta, and the entity that is Syrian would call it Alandon, and then the entity that is the Nihal would call it Rateta. And in these different expressions of the parts of the oversoul, most entities, unless they are at the end of their sixth density, do not have access to the greater portion of that, and that in their mind is why it is difficult to align your same understanding with the concept from the other fractal perspective. But we can share with you different incarnations that we perceived from your own existence. There are different entities that are known in your own history in which your fractal consciousness is connected to through the oversoul. Let us use, for example, you have connected with an ancient leader of the Australian area, one that was perhaps, as you would perceive, the king of Aboriginal tribes. This was dating back before 1000 AD. Also, you have ancestral linkage in your own previous incarnations to a king of England, one that we would call King Charles I. You were a direct relative of that entity. We also see that in your incarnation you were a chief of the Sioux Indians back within the 1200 regions of your times. So all of these lifetimes show you the vastness of the at least more known fractals of your oversoul.
Okay, that's wonderful.
Yes, and very exciting as well.
Yes, that's very exciting. Actually, my next question was, and you may have just answered it, but it was what probable past and future lifetimes am I most connected to in this moment?
Yes, the three of the ones that I have just expressed are most definitely within that concept, but in this moment you are drawn to two previous incarnations that are the most probable, and 5 future incarnations at the highest probability. Which of these do you wish to explore more deeply?
I would like to explore 2 future ones and 2 from the past.
Yes! So because of your experience of linear time, being that you experience in that way still, let us use that for fun's sake, so that we are able to have a lineage in a timeline for you to see. Yes! The very first lifetime that you are most connected to in the probabilities lies within 900 AD, and this period is within the Western European country. You are within the mountainous regions of now what you would call either Germany or France, and in that area you live very quietly by yourself in a very small village. In that village, your main desire is to meet other entities that are further away, and every summer you explore for a 4-month period, going down the mountain in different directions, and then continuing a cardinal point of direction until you feel that you have reached as far back as you understand that you must turn around to get home in time. And each time that you go outward, you meet new people, new villages, new cultures. At approximately your 19th birthday, you decide that I am no longer desiring to just go back at a certain point so that I am home at time. I wish to go through one cardinal direction and see what it would be like to travel for 5 years. So as you express this, you know that you must be back by the time that you are 24 years of age. So as you are going, you decide to go the same direction of the favorite previous trip that you had had, where you had met several beautiful women in a village, where you had had a very great time drinking alcohol and having exciting sexual encounters. So that is the direction you choose, and you go. But at the 2.5-year mark, you had met so many interesting people, you had met so many great adventures, that you decide to continue going in that path continuously. So as you begin to go forward, you spend the last 20 years of your life traveling, and had went as far south as Central Africa and as far east as what you would consider now the Middle Western portion. So in that time period, you were able to meet different tribes. You had been in danger very many times, as the cultures were so different when they saw your look and saw your racial concept, as you have on your planet different races. They attacked you or would be hostile towards you, but you always managed to come out of it because you saw it for what it was. It was an adventure and an excitement. So as you ended that lifetime, you became one of the most well-versed entities in that area at that time. You never made it back to that village before you passed in that incarnation. So in the next incarnation, you reincarnated back into that same area, but you did this in the 1700s. After you go back into the same similar village, it was much larger. There was a different lifestyle. You had no clue of your previous incarnation there. But it happens to be that 30% of the same entities that were there were reaccompanying you in this incarnation, but not just 30% of the entities in that village. 30% of the entities that you became dear friends with on your great travels decided to reincarnate in that small mountain area. So you grew up in this area, you stayed there, you became very wealthy, by trading and using farm animals. And after you began to gain your riches, you decided to have a family. After you had the family, you began to express to the children that you desired more for them than just staying in the mountains. Your oldest son was a very great traveler and began moving eastward with new trade routes, finding new entities and new, perhaps, we are not sure of the word that you would use, but different things for different economic needs and different concepts of things for trade and sell. And move eastward, your daughter became married to a very rich person within the area, more so than yourself, and did very well with multiple children. So you led a very simple life, but one that kept you within the mountainous regions, just as your intention was on the previous incarnation. Now we are moving forward into the probability of future. In the probability of your future incarnations, there are 2 incarnations that we see as a future human version. One of them is on Earth. That is your very first one. This incarnation occurs approximately in the year 2270. And as you are connected there, you are one entity who studies ancient history. You look backwards into the life of the Earth, understanding great puzzle pieces that the planetary collective does not have now about how you were raised as a race of entities that appear to be second density entities as monkeys into your more humanistic form. And as you begin the alien communication or communication with extraterrestrials less than 50 years before, they gave humanity a great many different blank spaces that were not thought of or technology could not find at that time period. So the extraterrestrial contact was very important to this. It was not as mainstream as some would think would be in the future time period, but there were delegates from different areas of the galactic consciousness that come to Earth, and in your travels, as you were invited by one of the council members to your country, which is in the Northern European area, they gave you the concept of coming to a special dinner, and at that dinner, you met a Galactic Council member or a galactic entity that comes to Earth as a delegate, and as you shared with this entity, you became very great friends in a very short time. This entity went back with you through the history from their records and perspectives as they had been with humanity for several thousands of years. He also introduced you to a small council or a small group that was 9 different entities that also were from races that had been with Earth from the historical point of your DNA manipulation. So coming together with this history, you were able to give the most comprehensive understanding from all the races' perspective that anyone had seen before that time period, and became such a great teacher at this that you were even informing entities from different planets. You would make, perhaps as you would call, a guided teaching, or we are not sure of the name, it is being stuck, but curriculum is the name. So you developed a curriculum to teach other entities, and as you begin to express this, you would teach them in a format where you could share outside of your planet. It became very well known in the quadrant of the galaxy where most of the communication was coming from. As you begin to share that, your excitement led you all the way into your 258th birthday, where you decided that you were no longer desiring to stay on Earth, although you did not directly leave your physical body on demand. It was well understood by you your desire to live was very highly linked to how long your physical body stayed intact. So in that essence, you felt as accomplished as you could ever feel, and you let go of that incarnation. The next incarnation that we perceive is several thousands of years into the future. In your period, it would be considered 33 in the AD year, or 3300 in the 33,000 in your AD years. At this portion, you are a part of a different consciousness, one in where the human collective consciousness has already left Earth, and there are many different fractions of humans living in the galaxy. In that time period, you were known as the Ron people, and the Ron people were one that were direct descendants from the African tribes of humanity that had left the concept of the Earth and inhabited a planet that is approximately 2,400 light years in the direction of your Ursa Majora constellation. There was a star that is now not known to humanity, but is only a C an N-C-G categorized star. And in that star, your race lived and thrived and always shared a great respect for other races. But in that journey, you are fifth dimensional beings, fourth density consciousness. That fourth density consciousness was one that was developing your fifth density connections, and you are beginning to graduate fourth density. So as you are doing this, you were responsible for helping allow a planetary shift through the full comprehension of unconditional love. In that lifetime, you were on a small team of members who fully understood and embraced the concept of graduating that fourth density consciousness by allowing your planet to connect all at once, telepathically and psychically. You were the first member to introduce the idea to have a planetary initiative for all consciousness to be connected. And as you begin to practice, several dozen years later, approximately 47 years, you allowed yourself and all of the entities who had been practicing to finally connect all of your consciousnesses into one consciousness. As you did this, you allowed yourself to transcend what you perceive as fourth density into the fifth density consciousness.
Wow, Treb, thank you so much for that. I have a lot to go over once we finish the session.
Yes, and it will be very exciting.
Yes, that's very exciting indeed. The next question I had is, I'm aware that I have 3 guides, and I know them as Wilma, Jack, and Chet, and I wanted to know if they are still connected with me, and what kind of entities are they?
Yes, all of these entities that you are familiar with are what you would call spirit guides. These entities are truly with you from the beginning of incarnation to the end portion of your incarnation. Now, with that concept being expressed, what we can also share with you is that these entities are same as you are entity. It is an earth consciousness, a human being consciousness that has lived and incarnated with you throughout your lifetime span and had promised you or agreed to stay in the non-physical so that you may achieve your own development and your own connection with him. So all 3 of these entities are very deeply connected to you and are still with you and will be with the highest probability of over 97.9% for the entirety of your incarnation.
Okay, that's great. That's very comforting to know that they're always going to be there.
Yes!
Treb, I would also like to know am I drawing most of my energy from my higher or lower chakras?
Yes! In fact, you are balancing yourself fairly well when it comes to drawing from the energy. You have the concept of living in your first and second chakra very well. In fact, there is resistance in both of those chakras, but when it comes time to pull on energy, you pull from first and second. You also are able to pull from your heart chakra and your crown and third eye chakra. So literally, although all of your chakras are being used, the most dominant in our perception is your second and your sixth chakra. So you are equally pulling from lower and higher simultaneously through your interactions. But let us assure you that in your interactions with your chakra system, to find the cause of your own excitement when you are going through your chakra system, see which one stimulates and excites you the most. And we do not mean just in a sexual way with your second chakra, but when you go through the emotional prospects of your chakras, and when you decide that you desire to pull from another chakra, it is as simple as going through your emotional status, seeing what is connected to which chakra, and then when you begin to desire to pull more from your heart or first or crown, all you must do is then feel the emotions of the conjoining chakra system and connect the intent to do so.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Yes!
And I'm not sure how much time we have left, if I have time for another question or not.
Yes, we have approximately 10 minutes left.
Okay, in that case, Treb, last year between November 5th and November 19th, I took a trip to Nepal. I have a very strong connection with eagles, and I travel quite a bit to photograph them and see them on migration. So I went to Nepal, like I said, at the end of November of last year, and I met a guy there, Hank, who I'd met for the first time, and we do the same job. He was a retired air traffic controller, and that's what I do now. So we had an instant connection. The last day of the trip, he passed away at the top of the Hawk Watch, and I saw him that morning before he died. So it was a very emotional day for everyone. But I remember there were a lot of eagles that day, and as I was walking back to the hotel, I saw an eagle that was migrating, or it flew from the opposite direction to where all the other eagles were flying, and it flew with a greater purpose than the other ones did, and it did 2 quick flips on its back very fast. And the guy that was with me saw it, and it took our breath away. And I wanted to know if this was a message from Hank saying that he was okay, or what was going on with this situation, because this eagle seemed very different than all the other ones.
Yes! Now, when you are looking at it, you perceive that this is your friend that you have made, that you have felt a great connection with, showing you that he was okay. And yes, this entity was okay and was experiencing the post-physical incarnation and experience, but what we can tell you is that this eagle was more directed towards your own consciousness than his, because this eagle is a portion of your oversoul, because you are in deep connection with that animal consciousness. In Native American culture, we would say that this is your totem animal or power totem animal. So as you are connecting to that portion of consciousness, what it is this entity is able to perceive the non-physical entity as your friend, perceives the energy and the transition of physical to non-physical, and then expresses to you through this message of physical feats and acrobatics that your friend is acceptable and that your friend is okay, and that is why you experience this. So it is a message from your friend, but it was not through your friend, it was through yourself.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yes, you are very welcome.
I guess the other thing that I had, let me check my notes here real quick. Have the other planets in the solar system completed the ascension process that is now occurring on Earth?
Yes, when you are looking at the concept of ascensional energy. The area and surface of the ascensional disk allows you to show the process of 9-year cycles, and every planet within the solar system collective has at least started their 9-year upward cycle. Most of them have went past the precipice, and even one is going down the precipice besides Earth.
Okay, so it's kind of like we're all in this together.
Yes, the collective consciousness that you call solar system collective consciousness goes through the ascensional process. Let us more specifically explain what it is in this process that allows this. Some entities believe that you are going through supercharged particles in the galaxy, or that when the galactic center aligns with you, that energy is given out. But what we can tell you is that the galactic center is a separate consciousness from the galaxy, if you are looking at separatism in its wayward divide. And as this entity expresses its own energy to the rest of the galaxy to help enhance and to start ascensional processes, it comes outward from the center of the galaxy to the very edge of the galaxy in a long arcing motion, much as you would look at a petal to a flower, and once it reaches the end it comes back inward, and it does this repetitively until it is done with the cycle. Then it staggers over so it would meet exactly between the center point of the two precipice outgoing areas of the previous one, and it continues to do this until every square inch of the galaxy has been covered. Now, when you are experiencing your portion of ascension, that same disk comes outward and covers the entirety of your galactic consciousness within 9 years, coming inward. You see 2012 as your precipice, so 9 years before, and 9 years after, that ascensional energy will leave you. It will not mean that if you do not feel as if you are full density, that you will never be full density. But what the ascensional energy does is lend you the energy to go through it at whatever rate you desire, and lends you the extra energy to use it.
Okay. And how are people who aren't aware of this process, are we all affected the same way? Is being aware of this process more helpful, I guess, is the question?
For some entities it is, for some it is not. If an entity is aware of the ascensional process and the mechanics and the physics of it, it can be helpful in the way that they understand that there are energies that go up and down. They understand the cycle of energies as it is repetition and differences from different areas of consciousness. But many people who have the knowledge of this ascensional process become impeded by it. And what we mean by being impeded by this is it means that because of their awareness of ascension, whenever they believe that they are not growing in the way that they could, or not growing as others around them are, they begin to become worried and believe that they possibly will never be able to experience the ascensional process. So, depending on the person and the way that they take in that information will depend on whether it is helpful or not. Let us assure you that those who are not aware of ascension, or not aware of the ascensional process in itself, are still being affected just as deeply as the ones who are aware of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes!
Treb, my next question is, I read once in a book that everybody is connected to, or more connected to, a specific color ray that comes from source. And it's much more of a vibration and a frequency than it is a color. But do you have any ideas or perceptions of this?
Yes! There are different energetic concepts that come from source energy. Some have assigned these with colors, some have assigned them with themes. In our perception, the way that we interpret it, it is only different themes that are being played out throughout the entirety of the universal collective consciousness. So as we are seeing all of these things, we understand and know that each and every one of the individuals will connect to all of those portions if they desire. But yes, it can be dominant in one energy more so.
Is it more dominant in me in a particular energy?
Yes, there is an energy that connects with you, and the understandings that we have of the color assignments, then what you would perceive as blue ray, that would be the one that connects you most deeply.
Okay, I knew that.
Yes!
I think the way I understand it, the Blu-ray is your mind can be your greatest asset, and it could also be a trap if you only rely on that to understand things. You have to also develop the other areas.
Yes, if you desire to develop and be balanced in your approach of connecting to energy, then this is a very good idea. But there are many entities who are very happy and they are very settled with the concept of only using one of those energies and becoming masters at it. It is much as if you go to school, you only have 10 years to go to school. So it is taking all of the science classes and none of the others so that they may be the smartest in the math or best at math or more familiar with math, or let us say perhaps science is what our example was. And in that example, as they are connecting to those, they become more strong, but those who wish to go all courses equally will find a greater balance within themselves, but in our perception, one is not better than the other. We wish to express to you that our time is almost over. We have time left for one very quick question, if you desire so.
Yes, one quick question. A day for you on your planet, how much time elapses on Earth?
Yes, if you are looking at your own concept, we do not have one day. Our planetary consciousness is what you would perceive as tightly locked. So we do not experience night and day unless we go around our planet. The portion of the planet that I am on in this moment, as we are speaking, is the lit-in side of the planet in the northern hemisphere, and that portion, if I were to stay there for the entirety of our yearly cycle, which is equivalent to 93 days, then I would be able to experience 1 year in the same concept of the same amount of sun, the same angle of sun, and the same brightness of sun. What we can tell you is the closest to your measurements of days and months that we would have is the 1/3 concept, or 1/3, and that dictates with our yearly concept of 31 days, being 1/3 of the 93 in total.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Yes, we wish to express to you that we have had a great excitement throughout our communication this evening, that sharing our energy with you and having yourself share your energy with us is very exciting and very expansive. And by understanding the questions and ideas that you look into in your own energy, it allows us to see that portion of ourselves that once we were not able to perceive. So in that way, we thank you for the expansion that you have shared with us, and with that being expressed, I wish to express to you that we leave you this evening in love and in light, and we will speak to each other again very soon.
Yes, we will, Treb, and I also leave you in love and light, and I too feel very expanded, and I will treasure this first recording session that we have, and I have a lot to go back over, so thank you very much for this.
Yes, and we will connect In more so, dream states have been one area where you have called upon my energy more so than others, and that is where your greatest likelihood to experience me the most soon would be again. So we thank you and express to you a very good evening.
Good night, Treb.
Good night.